So welcome to Spotting Fake News Online. I'm Amanda. I'm a library assistant at Middleton Public Library. And today we are going to take a look at this hard topic. So our goal here tonight is going to be to understand why it's important to question truthfulness of articles and images that you find on the internet. And we're also going to define what confirmation bias is, recognize it, and how it impacts your decision making. And then also develop strategies for identifying something that would be labeled fake news or images. So we'll go ahead and dig on in. So there are a few different ways that we experience media or the news. So this would be through social media, which is a very, very large way. It never used to be that way, but it's one of the newer ones. TV, newspapers, magazines, radio, and podcasts. And obviously, a lot of these are found on the internet. So sometimes you could just say the internet as one big giant way that we can experience this. I think it's important to note that we're all kind of stuck in our own bubble sometimes. We might not always see the other side of whatever our beliefs or biases are. So there are some bias charts out there for media that you might consume. This specific one is from Ad Fontes Media. This is their 2021 chart. There's lots of different ones out there. I know Common Sense Media has one. I really like Common Sense Media. I couldn't find any updated one. So I had that on here previously and I took it off just because it was I think that was a 2018 version. I like to try and get the most updated one I can to have on this slide. So there's a few other places that will do this too. I think it's important to look at all of them to see the differences because even though these are biased charts, the people who make these charts could also have their own confirmation bias wrapped in this. So this is just an example of different media organizations and kind of where they fall in the chart of whether they're more extreme in one direction or not politically. And then also you have and that's the spectrum down at the bottom. And then the axis that's on the left there, the news value and reliability, just kind of talks about whether or not there is more opinion in it, if it is more based on facts or if it's a mix. And then I do have the key on the right side there of the different like color that they circled the areas in on what's kind of a mixed. Most of the time, the area in the middle is going to be like middle top is where you would lie to get the most unbiased that you could possibly get. However, we all know that that is still biased. Even the most unbiased is still biased. So when you're looking at the different types of media that might be fake, it would be more towards the bottom. As you go up, it gets more reliable, but the very bottom would be super fake. And then as you go up. So again, that's just one version of it. You could take a look at others. If you just Google media bias chart, you can find some. The Ad Fontes Media, they are probably the most popular one. So this one will probably be one of the first ones that pop up, but you can take a look at other ones. And I do encourage that because we all have confirmation bias. So that's a natural tendency that we try to seek out or favor information that confirms what you already believe to be true. At the same time, you're just kind of ignoring what contradicts it. We always want to be in the right. We always want to be in the good. So it's a normal human thing, but it is important to pay attention to that and to remember that when you are taking in information. And this day and age, there's information coming in at us all day long, and it can be hard when you have so many different things coming in. There are a few tips that comes from our little handy sidekick here. I think it's Freddie the Ferret. So he is one of the mascots for Ebsco, and we used Ebsco products for our databases at the library. So this is a presentation that is partially from them, and then I also added in Freddie because he is cute. So first, read beyond the headline. Second, consider your source. 3, check the author or photographer if it's an image. 4, check the date. And 5, check any links that you might find. Those are important things to look at before you cite or share that piece of information. And there are a lot of different things out there to help you, different charts and graphs. In the handout, I do include a few of these. So I'm just gonna go forward here for a second. There is this little guy here from Common Sense Media, a legit-o-meter that has different columns here that you can go about and make sure that everything is good to go. And there's also at the end of our handout, pull that up for a second. Where did I have the handout? Here it is. So in the handout that I have in the chat, which again, I can put in the chat again. There's Freddie. So read beyond the headline. So what's the whole story? Is it seem like an outrageous headline that's just trying to grab your attention? Is it using words that might offend you? Because sometimes those aren't great. You know, headlines should be to the point, but in truth, they really shouldn't be all that offensive. So the more offensive they are or seem, then that would kind of signal maybe that's a little less trustworthy than you think. Oh, looks like it. Let me reshare that. That didn't show up. There you go. So first one, read behind the headline. 2, consider the source. So what's the purpose of the website? Does it seem like it's impartial or is it biased? Always look for an About Us section that might be in the website. Look for contact information and also pay attention to the address. So anything that is .com, .co, that has all those extra added stuff at the end, if it's kind of unusual looking, I would stop there and leave that site. There are sites out there that you can double check to make sure that things are all okay. Let's go back to this one. And those are like Politifact, Snopes, and I can show you those here in a second after we kind of go through this. And again, check the author. If there is absolutely no author, I would leave the site. It is not anything that you would take to heart at all. If there's an author, you can also then do, like if there's a name, you could do extra sorry about that, extra research to just kind of see more about that author. Checking the date, again, is really important. Sometimes there might be pictures used on our news articles online that aren't actually from that specific time. It might be a related photo that they used because they couldn't get a photo, and it might be a photo from 2 years ago, things like that. And then the links at the bottom. Oftentimes, if they are citing anything, I would want to make sure that there's links. One example I use of this is whenever you use Wikipedia. Now, there are questionable things on Wikipedia for sure, but there are a lot of good pages that have a lot of good information on them. And the best ones have links that cite all of the facts or information where they got them from. And when you go down to the bottom of each Wikipedia page, you can click on that link as long as that link is still kept up and actually goes to an address, you can find where that piece of information came from. So checking any links that might be down at the bottom of the page is always really helpful. Also, other tips would be check if there's a comment section. One thing you'll notice if it's from the Associated Press, which is pretty much a cut and dry, here's the news, it doesn't really give you too much opinion in it for the most part. There is no comment section for Associated Press. If it's a news story that was taken from Associated Press but posted on a news, like a local news channel's website, they might have a comment section. And that's okay, but I think it's important to just pay attention to the things that are also being said in the comment section. Really, if there's comments to be made, I think there's more proper avenues for that to be done in terms of, credible information or dialogue that happens within that. So kind of checking out and see if there's a comment section. Number 7 is evaluate any supporting quotes. So this kind of goes with checking links. So if there is somebody who is quoted in there, if there isn't a link, then I would do a search on the name of that person that gave that quote to see if they're credible to also have their name quoted in this article. It's always important too to ask whether or not this is satire. There are plenty of actual fake news sites and papers that are out there. The biggest one is The Onion, and these are just in jest, something for people to laugh at, not by any means anything real. They're not putting it out there to make people think it's real. So always watch out for those. Sometimes there's new ones that come out. The Onion, I think, was kind of like the first main one on the internet. Obviously, this stuff has been around for many, many years. But watch out for those. And ask yourself, do I believe my own beliefs are affecting my judgment? If you feel like it is, then you just turn around and you find something that's completely opposite of what your beliefs are to then read up on that as well. It's always good to get two sides. And last thing is, if you are kind of wondering if the image is not correct, you can do a reverse image search on Google, and I can show you how to do that. But sometimes you can see if it's been used in multiple articles recently. And it does happen. So again, back to our legit-o-meter. So we've already covered a few of these. So watching the web address. With images, You also do want to pay attention to the author and or date with the image. Usually under each image, it might in smaller print have that written. So not only an author or date for the article, but if there's an image as well. Let's see, if something is evoking an emotional reaction, so something that's trying to get you to click on it, like I talked about with headlines, if the headlines seem really outrageous, or using large capital letters and words like epic, amazing, unbelievable, incredible, a lot of those, definitely stay away from. It's probably going to be clickbait. And a lot of times with those clickbait things too, you might end up into some kind of scam page where it takes over your web browser and you have to close your web browser down. So that's definitely a way to stay away from those as well. But I like how they just lay this out really clearly. And they have an area where it's kind of in the middle, like this could be an okay place, or maybe it's not. Anything that says sponsored content on it, that means it's an advertisement. Sometimes it might just say ad in the corner. This happens a lot on Google when you are doing a search. Oftentimes it'll say sponsored content in the records there. Make sure it doesn't have any typos or grammar issues. That is definitely a clue. And again, the About Us section, that's definitely a big key to whether or not it's a good place for you to be. Now this slide here, I know it looks like super, super fake when you look at some of the stuff on there, but I think it's just a good example. They can be really sly about it and put maybe some of these things in there, but not everything, to be a clue for you. But definitely, at the top we have all caps for each title. There is no About Us section, but there is a sign up for more exclusive content and register here. That also would not be a credible place to go. You want to make sure you leave. Nothing that's credible is going to make you sign up, other than sometimes newspapers online are going to ask you to subscribe after seeing so many free ones. Then any images that look like they're altered, sometimes you can really tell, sometimes not. But here they have a image of some kind of spaceship they've put up on there. A lot of exclamation points would also be a key. So it's a little hard there to read, but they do have a lot in there. And then anything that has just a lot of ads on the side too. So that's just kind of a really super, super obvious example, but I do like how Common Sense Media just makes it really clear and labels each section. So that is in your handout if you wanted to look at that later. So I have a few examples here that we will go through, and if you have an answer, you can definitely unmute yourself or put it in the chat. If nobody wants to answer, that's okay. I will tell you what the answer is, but we're just kind of going to go through this here. So this one is trying to test whether or not you're looking at these items and using your confirmation bias, or if you're trying to look past that. So it's asking us, which article would you share on social media if you believed left-handed people are more creative than right-handed people? So Article A, title, Right is Wrong, the Surprising Life Benefits of Being Left-Handed. And it has a picture of President Barack Obama, who is signing something, and he is using his left hand. The Article B on the right just has some kind of random picture with looks like hands, and it says dispelling the myth of the left-handed genius. So which do you think would be more okay to share if you were trying to share something about this with people? Does anyone have a guess? If you don't want to say anything, that's fine.
Article A.
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 So I understand why you say that, because Obama is using his left hand, but the answer is actually B, only because it's not using any kind of political statement within the image. So the titles are both pretty run-of-the-mill, nothing super, like pulling at my emotions. But if we were to share something about this topic on social media, when you are trying to look past your confirmation bias, the Article B would be the one that you should be trying to post instead of A. And that's only just because of the image. So we're just trying to make it as unbiased as possible. That is a good try. Let's see. Next one, just paying attention to images. And then again, I'll show you how to do a reverse search, but this is a widely known one that came out. This was on the day, I believe, 9/11 happened. It's when President George Bush was visiting kids and reading them a book, and somebody edited the photo and turned the book upside down. And the only reason why I feel like it's easy to tell is in the one on the right, which is the original photo, his hands look a little clear. On the one on the left, and actually it's not as clear and nice anymore. So someone obviously did something to it and flipped it around. So there were people trying to say that, oh, he's reading a book upside down to children. Obviously he has aides that are around him that day that would have noticed whether or not he was holding the book upside down to begin with. So, when you have to look past confirmation bias and realize, what goes on in a president's day, that very obviously wouldn't have happened for this kind of photo op that was planned and things like that. So just trying to look past the political stuff and just think about what might actually have been going on. So this is, again, you can look this up. I think it might be on Snopes. So they have like long-standing myth or fact stuff that you can do research on. But that's another example of just people being able to edit photos. You can get up really close. At the time when this was done, photo editing wasn't actually as good as it is now, which is why I think the one on the left is a little fuzzy. But you can tell. Another one, these are all real. So obviously the picture isn't real, but like the people tried to pass it off as real. So this is a photo of flooding that happened in Christchurch, New Zealand. And someone tried to Photoshop and say that an orca got into the floodwaters and was jumping around in the water in Christchurch, when that wasn't true. They did a pretty good job, though, because they even made a little bit of a shadow down here at the bottom, which is kind of easy to do with Photoshop. But that's also another known one as well. And this one, I can't remember if there was actually any kind of information listed with it, but if there wasn't an author or a date, then I probably wouldn't believe it's true. This is another one. This is one from the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. This image was circulated on social media as something that was taken during Hurricane Sandy. But actually, this photo was from a different rainstorm at a different time. And this is just one that was used for the purposes of an article. So it's always good to pay attention to dates on photos. And again, it's not necessarily, depending on the article, it might not be bad to reuse a photo, but always take those with a grain of salt, because it might be, it was used because it has to do with the topic, but it may not have been from the actual time that that story is talking about. This one is an image that claims to be from the area in Japan around the Fukushima nuclear plant. And if you're doing research on a paper on the effects of nuclear radiation and you stumble on this photo, how could you find out whether this is true or false? This is where we can do a reverse search. Or you could just Google it and just Google Fukushima nuclear flowers. So it was a claim that, oh my gosh, this happened because of the nuclear disaster in Fukushima. Flowers started growing weird, and this whole place is super contaminated, and this is some kind of flower birth defect, is the truth. So this can happen to flowers anywhere, and it has nothing to do with Fukushima. So if we were to, I'm gonna get out here for a second and do, let's see. So if we go ahead and do Fukushima nuclear flower. First of all, just a regular Google search. It does show up right away. So you could just start reading about these here. So like there's one from National Geographic. So this was something that someone claimed. No, they don't want me to read it. Well, they claimed that it was, like I said, something from the nuclear disaster. But come to find out that it's actually just the information on Snopes. And it's just a birth defect to flowers that happens sometimes. So you can see this anywhere. Obviously, things like that could happen around a nuclear disaster area. But this specific one was not that. But if you're interested in that and reading more about that one specifically, it is on Snopes. So you can search on Snopes. You could just say Fukushima flower and look at it that way too. If I were to copy the image, then go to Google's website. Go to, let's see here, images. So you can either paste in an image or if I want to upload. So I tried to paste it and I don't think it kept it. This is how you do the reverse search. So I'll back up for a second. So you go to Google and then up at the top, you click on images and then you say search by image. So if you have the image saved, either the URL that it's on, or if you saved the image as a file, you could upload it and then search by the image. And then I will tell you exactly where it was from. So let's see. Go. Did I have that? All right, so comes up. Same articles that we saw before, but that's an example of how to do that reverse search. All right, so let's go back to here. Okay, and we've kind of touched on clickbait a little bit, but anything that has a catchy headline, often it's going to be things like 9 ways to get rich quick, or it also might be health related. So it could be, how to lose 100 pounds in 2 weeks. Something like that. Excuse me. And usually what's behind that clickbait is either something that wants you to sign up, pay money, or it could be a scam that's trying to take over your browser. So none of those are ever going to get you any kind of information. It's always going to be one more thing. So here's some examples. We can just kind of go through them. So 12 unusual ways celebrities hydrate their skin. Well, they're talking about hydrating your skin, but 1, it's a health thing, and 2, they're quoting celebrities, which I don't know that they're quite an expert at skincare. So that would be clickbait. Avoid a holiday health crisis. Maybe, but again, you're combining health and crisis together, plus the holidays. That's going to give you an emotional reaction. So it's probably clickbait. The economy is humming, but businesses aren't borrowing. There's nothing too emotional in that. So I'm going to guess that would be news. And the last one, world's oldest woman reveals the one food she eats every day. That's kind of along the lines of the get rich quick kind of thing, but involves health. So that also is clickbait. So I wanted to go over some of these fact-checking websites and show them to you in person. And then also, just because this is a class on fake news, all of the images and information that we grabbed from, there are all my sources. Need to follow what I talk about. Let's go back to here. I don't want like Google search anymore. So like I said, Snopes here, you could search anything. On their homepage, they have just anything that's kind of some top things that people are talking about in the media to help you fact check quicker. Politifact is going to be some anything that's politics based. That and factcheck.org, they're both politically based, and they are, I think, good ones to use during election seasons, especially if there are any debates going on in like the national elections, anything with US representatives, Senate, presidents. Whenever there's debates, they're usually running a fact check during the debate. So it's always interesting to look at that. And another one for politics, which is just kind of a general, here's information on people running, different candidates. They all have the same questionnaires that get sent out to them, but is Ballotpedia. And Ballotpedia is actually, while they're a website, they are headquartered in Middleton. So one of our own. And I use this a lot for every election that I vote in. It really helps me because sometimes it can be hard to find information on candidates elsewhere, especially if I missed the newspaper that some of it might have been in. So that is another good place for information like that. Wikipedia has this very helpful page, which is a list of fake news websites. So just ones that are well-known, have been proved time and time again that you need to stay away from these sites. Some of them are ones that are meant to look legitimate, like actual news, but like this one here, I always see abcnews.com.co. Anytime you have that extra thing, it's not going to be what you think it is. That .co is what gives it away. Even when you click on it, it might have the same logo, but anyone can copy paste a logo into anywhere. So just pay attention to things like that. But this is a long list. This is an international list. Mostly US based, but it technically is international. There is other articles that Wikipedia has here, list of places that are strictly satirical news websites, strictly only fake news in the United States. And then if you want to look country by country. So the thing I think that's a good takeaway with all this, and if you read any of these extra pages here is fake news or untrue news or yellow journalism has been around for hundreds of years. It's something that came about when people started printing things with the printing press. So I guess always remember that this isn't something new. The topic is the same, but the lingo might change. So like the term fake news, has not always been in our immediate vocabulary. So, it's always just about making sure that your research is thorough and that you're finding credible information. There's also a few other places. This is the Duke Reporters Lab. So they have lists of other resources to help you fact check, and it's globally. So if I want to click here, kind of around the Chicago area, they'll give me those. They have 2 in St. Paul. So if you wanted to look for some information locally and look to see what's being done with fact checking, or doing research on stuff that's happening in those local areas, you can find a way to do that through here. It's also very important that if you ever come across scams and fraud on the internet, that you do report it. I know it may feel like those things are never looked at because there's so much of it, but in reality, they are taking tabs on how many times something has been reported. I don't know the number on how many times it needs to be reported before they take any kind of action, but it always is important. And here is the website that you would go to report that. So here you can report scam and fraud or report suspected tax fraud, any of that. They give you places to call for identity theft, or you can report it online. And I know there's a lot of phishing stuff out there right now that is just all over the place. I know there's some eBay one going around right now that I've heard people talk about. But definitely be aware. This is a good website to look over if you ever come across any of those things. And if you wanted to test your knowledge and just kind of hone your skills, there is this fun website called Factitious that right now they have a pandemic edition here, but there is the 2018 one is just kind of news in general. That if you click on that one, it doesn't want to start right now, but it just kind of goes through and it's like a little quiz, and then it tells you what the answers are and why at the end. So it's kind of a fun one to go along, but that I believe is on your handout as well. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat again, just in case. So it's just PDF, and then you just click it, open, and then it should open up like this. And then you can do file and save. Now let's see, is there anything else that I had? Already looked at that. One thing, since we're a library, obviously we have books that you can look at, but also we do have online databases. We have access to both scholarly and non-academic databases to do research on, as well as print journals or newspapers. So if you have something that you need to look up, you can always ask us at the desk if you need help, if you've never done it before. I can also show you here. So when you, this out of the way here, we're almost done here. You go to our website, it's just bidlibrary.org. And then on our homepage, we have a bunch of tabs. At the top, we want to go to resources and online databases. And here is all of the databases that you have access to with your library card. You can get these at home. Some of the most important ones for doing research would be obviously maybe some consumer reports. And then we have some business ones. We have Britannica Library. So we have Encyclopedia Online that you have access to, both kids version and an adult version. And then one that I usually use for just general any kind of research is Ebscohost. And this is going to give you access to business research, health topics, especially I think is really important to do on here. And there's also the Spanish version is underneath here. So if you do speak Spanish and would rather have it in Spanish, there is the link to that as well. So if I click on this here, so you have a bunch of different ones. The main one that is kind of multidisciplinary that I have used many times is Academic Search Premier. But there are a lot of others. So there is a description under each title for each one. So there's some health ones, there's a business one. There's Consumer Health Complete. And I would definitely tell you that if you're looking for health information, first, always your doctor. And then to any kind of doctor recommendations for information, and then any of the books that we might have in the library and or these journals that you can do research in. A lot of these are going to have, researches on studies and things. The Consumer Health Complete one is going to have content that is a little bit more digestible, I think, for consumers. Some of the other ones, like, what was the one up here? Alt Health Watch or some other ones, they might have a little bit more harder jargon in it for consumers. It might be more for like doctors who are looking at other doctors' studies and looking at what they're working on. So just pay attention to the descriptions, because it'll help you know whether or not it's going to be something that's actually going to be helpful. Because if it's something that's just full of a bunch of scientific terms that you don't understand, that's not really going to be helpful. But this dives into educational information. And then you also have things for the environment, like Green File for trying to be more green, renewable energy, recycling, things like that are in here as well. History, humanities. If you're interested in the world of libraries, we have some in here for our staff to use. There's Medline. I forgot about that one. There's a military and government collection. We also have newspapers in here. So newspaper, Source Plus, and Newswires. And let's see here. We have science. We also have our small engine repair reference center. So if you ever need that, those are the main ones within EBSCO. And that's just within EBSCO. So remember, previously I was on our webpage. I had all these as well. So we also have things like we have the Literary Reference Center. If you need to look up anything that's related to like literature or poetry. And we have the Wisconsin newspapers here that you have access to, and US News Stream. So here you can get New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, LA, Boston, Chicago. And then we also do have newspapers.com, which is the World Collection, and that one has historical papers, and that only goes to the early 2000s. It kind of depends on the paper, but if you're trying to look up anything that might be in the past, that would be a good one to go to. So there's lots of resources that we have through the library that you could also use in your search, or just trying to make your skills better. And definitely remember that everybody is dealing with this kind of topic every day. So you're not the only one, and even the most seasoned researcher can still get duped by anything on the internet. There's a lot of people out there who work hard to create things like that. And so even the best expert can sometimes fall short on their skills. But I'm hoping that with these resources, you'll be able to feel a lot more confident in taking in information around you. It's not going to go away. So I think it's best if we just keep working on our skills. Yeah, that's the end of the handout there. I just have another little worksheet to go through if you ever feel like you need to help on figuring out whether or not something is questionable. But that is all I have for you. I will have this handout up hopefully tomorrow, and you'll be able to see the recording, and then also download the handout if for some reason you couldn't get it in the chat tonight. But if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself or put it in the chat. And other than that, thank you so much for coming.
Where is this going to be tomorrow, the recording?
This will be on our website. So hold on, let me